YouTube channel. I wish to welcome you to the side event focusing on women's rights in wartime and especially during Hamas captivity. It is my privilege to sit in front of you today as representative of Women's International Zionist organization WIZO. We are Israel's leading organization for education and social services, eager to promote an equal society for all, supported by a global network. And we're honored to host this side event today. Sitting on the panel today are Ambassador Meirav Eilon Shahar, permanent representative of Israel to the United Nations in Geneva, Aviva Siegel and Raz Ben-Ami and their daughters, returned hostages from the darkest place on earth, who are here to bear witness in front of you. Mrs. Antonia Yamin, journalist on Channel 12 and Bild in Berlin, our moderator today. Women's rights is a key concern in our societies in time of peace and even more during time of conflict. What happened on October 7th and what came after that somber day shows us how human rights, and more specifically, women's rights, were completely annihilated. October 7th, when the most beastly attacks were perpetrated in Kibbutz Be'eri and at the Nova Festival, is a date which will be remembered forever. How do we carry on from here? What are the solutions given today by our societies? Stigmatization, one-sidedness, and accusation will not be the solution. We hope that in these forums, comprehension, collaboration, and cultural mutual understanding will prevail. We in WIZO feel it is our duty to allow the returned hostages to have a floor and to be able to testify before you today. We commend the courage, the extreme courage of Aviva Siegel, of Raz Ben-Ami, to be here while their husbands, Keith and Ohad, are still held in captivity. We hope that our leaders throughout the world will find the strength, the courage, and the solutions to a more just, inclusive, and better society. I am honored to welcome Ambassador Meirav Eilon Shahar, who would give you a few opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Anne, and I would like to start by thanking you all for joining us and for WIZO for organizing today's event. But most importantly, I want to thank Aviva and Raz and Elan and Elan that have made the effort to come here so we can all hear what they've gone through while they're in captivity in Gaza, Aviva and Raz. Today is the 146th day to the war that was imposed on Israel on October 7th. It's important to remember that on the 6th of October, we had a ceasefire. On October 7th, not only 1,200 people were massacred and butchered, but more than 240 people, men, women, children, babies, were snatched from their homes and were taken to Gaza. Today, we still have 134 hostages remaining there. Men, women, and still 2 babies. And Aviva and Raz are indeed a very courageous women. I cannot imagine what you went through. And I'm thankful that you are here to share with us so people can understand what it means to be snared from your home and in the clutches of a terrorist organization, because we are talking about the terrorist organizations. Some people like to call it armed groups. No, these are terrorists. And people really need to understand that we are almost 5 months since October 7th, and what it means that Ohad and Keith and 132 other hostages are still held in Gaza. And it's important because we say 134 people, but there are stories behind it. These are people. And I said it this morning in the council, in many of the speeches, if they are mentioned at all, they're a footnote. And they're not a footnote. These are people that their lives have been turned upside down. So thank you once again for coming. And I hope that with your testimony today, people will understand that the release of the hostages is a condition for ending the war in Gaza. There is no other alternative. In Israel, for Israelis, we cannot move on without having all the hostages back home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ambassador. I would like now to give the floor to our moderator today, Antonia Yamin.
Thank you.
I will let you lead now.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Mrs. Ambassador. With us today, as you could hear, are two really brave and courageous women who went through the horrors of Hamas. They will talk to you about what they went through, about the torture, about the abuse, about the sexual crimes that our men, women, and children are still enduring in Gaza. It won't be easy. It will be hard to listen to them, but bear with them because they don't speak about the past. We still have 134 people in there. Aviva Siegel was held hostage by Hamas for 51 days. Her husband Keith is still in Gaza. Raz Ben-Ami was held hostage for 54 days, and her husband Ohad is still in the hands of Hamas. Each will speak to you directly for a few minutes. Afterwards, we will have a panel where I will ask them a few questions. Please bear in mind that if you want to ask some questions, in the end, it's possible. Don't be shy. Aviva, you can start.
This morning, coming to the United building, I sat there and I was crying. I was so upset sitting in such an important building with so many important people listening to me, knowing that Keith is there and knowing that he does not have rights. I was there for 51 days with no human rights at all. No water, no food. They just let us starve while they went to the room next door and they came back chewing. Or they even used to take a plate of food and sit next to us while we are watching and being starved for 24 hours, not eating anything and smiling. Okay. I'm Aviva Siegel. I am from Kibbutz Kfar Aza, and Keith and I, my husband, were kidnapped on the 7th of October. I have 4 children and 5 grandchildren that are waiting for Keith to come back. We were in the worst jail ever, with no human rights. They used to make fun out of us whenever they wanted. But I want to start from the beginning. Kibbutz Kfar Aza lost 63 people, and I know them all. It's a small community, and when I came back and I heard that, I was in a shock. To know that my kids' friends, to know that there's so many widows left with their children. People were killed by burning them alive. 2 children hid themselves into a cupboard while their mother was lying next to them. 2 babies that are 10 months old were put in a baby's bed together while they killed the mother and the father, and they just waited there for more than 20 hours. When they did find the kids in the same bed, one didn't have clothes on, and his brother just bit him from being so frustrating. They found a family that was hugging each other on the bed. There was a family that the father tried to protect their 4 children, and they killed him in front of the children. Their daughter fainted, and they asked the mother to wake her up. She didn't wake her up because she couldn't, because she didn't wake up. So they killed her in front of her eyes. They took Keith and I, after sitting in the shelter and feeling that we're safe, they just opened the door and took us with our pajamas. When they took us, they pushed us, and Keith fell, and they broke his ribs, and they shot all over us, and one of the bullets hit his hand. I'm the only one that took care of Keith. For at least 5 weeks, he could not sit. He had to lie down, and he was forced to sit. We weren't allowed to stand. We weren't allowed to move. When I came back, I could hardly walk. I was so weak. I lost 10 kilos. I was dehydrated. I had stomach problems in Gaza for more than 5 weeks. One of the days they took us down to a tunnel. We didn't have the right to have any oxygen, but they did. They just left us there. They left us there for days while there was no oxygen, and they went up. We were down 40 meters underground with not being able to breathe. I thought that I am going to die, and Keith thought he's going to die. For 51 days, I thought that I'll never, ever see my children. I will never see my daughter getting married. This picture of Keith was taken 3 weeks before we were kidnapped, while my daughter told us that she's getting married. She got engaged. And for 51 days, I didn't think that I'll ever see my daughter getting married. So I'm thankful that I'm alive and that I can come here and share my story, because I want Keith and Ohad and all the 134 people that are in Gaza, that are just innocent people from all over the world, I want them to come back. The conditions there were terrible. We were threatened. One of the days, one of the girls went to the toilet, and while she came back after a while, I could see by her face that something happened to her. So I stood up and I took her for a hug. And the Hamas guy came and started shouting. I knew we weren't allowed to hug, and she knew we weren't allowed to hug. But I had to, because I felt like her mother. She's just a child. She kept quiet. And after a couple of hours, she came to me and she said, he touched me. He did sexual abuse. And I was shocked. We were all shocked. We didn't stop crying with her. One of the days, he called one of the girls, and then he brought him back and told her to get dressed. They used to dress us and move us with clothes looking like them, that they wouldn't recognize us. Keith and I were moved 13 times. They told her to get dressed, and while she was getting dressed, she turned around and she said, I'm scared of what they're going to do to me. He hit her, he pulled her hair, he pushed her. She fell while he was threatening her with a gun to her head. They took her to the room next door, covered her with a blanket, handcuffed her, and hit her. When she came back to the room, she was red, sweaty, her hair was standing, and I could see the signs because she was handcuffed, and the signs stayed there for at least 5 days, and she was sore. And I asked her, how come you didn't scream? And she said, I didn't want to give them the pleasure of them hurting me. They hurt us all the time. You can see me, I look just like everybody else, but if you would see my heart, I'm broken into pieces, thinking of what I went through and that Keith is going through the same for nearly 5 months. And it's hard. It's hard to be strong for my children, for my grandchildren, and to make them feel happy that I'm here, while I am so sad and broken into pieces that Keith is still there. I'm here for you, everybody, looking at you and asking you to help. We need help. I want Keith to come back. I want the hostages to come back. I want everybody to understand that it's not easy for me to come and tell you these stories. I would rather not. The stories that you hear are true. I just heard the stories about the Nova, that girls were raped and then they were shot in the intimate places. Can you think about something like that? One of the girls told me that she went into the shower, and while she was there, one of the terrorists went inside, took his clothes off, with a gun towards her head, told her to do everything that he wanted. The worst thing that could ever happen to any lady in the world. So I want to ask you all, is everybody in the world allowed to touch girls, to starve people, to laugh when they ask and beg for water, to put them down in a talon and just let them die there and not even bring them any food or any water, or not even be there because they can't breathe, so why should they be there? Just let us. We went through hell. Keith is there having hell. Ohad's there having hell because they're not human. We spoke to people today, and what we understand, that Hamas doesn't listen to anybody. We went to the Red Cross, and the Red Cross said Hamas won't even give them, let them bring them the medicine. So I want to ask you, if Israel sends tablets to Keith because he needs them, because he has high blood pressure, and it's written on the box, Keith, Siegel, and somebody else just gets the tablets, is that right? So who's supposed to make this world work? I'm begging all the leaders of the world, wake up, and don't forget 9/11 in America. And don't forget the Holocaust, because this is a second Holocaust. And one of the places we were taken, Keith and I were taken to a house that belongs to UNRWA. There was a big car with the UN outside, standing outside, and while we went inside, we saw a cupboard that was open, full of sandals, kids' sandals, all sizes of sandals. Can you believe that? I can't believe that. I can't believe what I went through, and I can't believe what I'm going through, being there and going through hell, coming back and trying to figure out what is happening in the world, that the world does not believe us, and asking myself questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aviva, for this strong testimony. I can't even imagine how it feels like to relive this story time and time again and on international stage. But it is so very much important. Raz Ben-Ami, if you could take the floor now.
I'm Raz Ben-Ami. I'm 57 years old. I'm from Kibbutz Be'eri. I have 3 daughters. Lives in the Kibbutz Be'eri, not with us. And they were in the kibbutz on 7th of October. Me and my husband was in the shelter. We heard the terrorists come into the kibbutz. They start shooting and shout Allahu Akbar. They went into our house. Before we heard on the group of the kibbutz that there are terrorists in the kibbutz. So I told my husband, go close the shelter, and they shot him. And then he went into the shelter. It was white as the snow. I took a blanket and hid on the corner of the shelter. They came into the house, ruined everything, broken. We heard them in the house. We were very scared that they will go into the shelter, but they did. And they took my husband first, and then I heard him saying, "I can't breathe." Then they put the light on, and they saw me, and they took me. They took me very strongly by the hand, and when they took the blanket off me, there was a person with a big hammer standing above me. And then they took me out. They want to put me in the car, and they say, "No, no, no." And then they want to put me on a motorcycle, and I said no. And a person with a gun just put it to my head and said, "Go on. Go on the bike." And then on the way, I saw, near the kibbutz, I saw a lot of Gaza citizens, women, children, just go into the kibbutz, not only terrorists. I saw my kibbutz on fire on the way. I saw a lot of bombs along the way, like big black fire. They threw things at me, hit me on the way, and after like 15 minutes, we were in Gaza. Then they took me into an apartment. I was there alone. For 3 days, I was listening to the radio in Hebrew, so I heard what's going on in Israel and the Nova Party and the dead people on the way, that they were killing people like they was trying to run away. And there is a road from Be'eri to Sderot, and on this way, they were just shooting people in the cars. And I heard it on the radio when I was in Gaza. It was very hard. After 3 days, I was waking up, heard that there are 100 people killed in Kibbutz Be'eri. Then I decided for myself, I'm not listening to the radio anymore. How can I listen to the radio and being captured by terrorists and
Not be able to do anything.
not be able to do anything, and I had to keep my insanity. So I didn't listen to the radio anymore. And what I can tell you, I'm sick. I had one medicine. I had to get plenty of medicine because I have tumors in my head. And I have sickness that I need to drink and go to the toilet a lot. If I don't drink and go to the toilet, I had to get my medicine for it. He got me this medicine he got for me, but I had to beg for this medicine. If I hadn't had this medicine, I would be dehydrated and died. And we didn't have any good water. They gave us water in a bucket, and we put them in the toilet to flush the water in 4 days. I went into the toilets and drank this water that they gave us to flush because we didn't have any water. And I needed to drink, and I didn't get my medicine all the time. One night I was begging for my medicine, and he didn't give it to me. I could go crazy without this medicine. You wouldn't understand. And I didn't get any other medicine that I need. When I got back into Israel, my sickness got worse. I got on steroids again. I started to get my medicine, but it doesn't work yet. Maybe time will do it. The food, I ate only pita and bread. I lost like 8 kilos. Like I said, the most problem for me was the drinking. I didn't know my daughter was alive because when we spoke in the kibbutz by WhatsApp, they told me they heard shooting near the houses. So think about it. I was there for 54 days, don't know if my daughter are alive or not. I thought I had a girl, one of my girls was in Nachal Oz. It's also a kibbutz very near to the border. I thought she was kidnapped. All the things that I had time to think about, and I almost got crazy in there. It was terrible. I was scared. There were guns all the time. I was really scared. Like 5 minutes before we got out of to Israel, he told us we are going back. 5 minutes. I was with another girl. Her name is Gali. She's 14. She was kidnapped from the kibbutz. Her house was on fire. She was with her brother and her father. Her father pushed her out of the window so she won't get burned. And the terrorists started shooting at her. And then she ran away. She was hiding. And then she thought, what am I going to do now? She told me this. What am I going to do now? And she got out. And the terrorists took her on her father's bike. And on the way, she saw bodies. A body of one of her friends who is her age, her mom. She saw her lying on the floor, dead. And then they put her into 2 families with children. After that, they brought her to me. And I was a Gaza mom. We called her a Gaza mom. She didn't know her brother was dead. Her brother was 16 years old, and he got murdered when she was in Gaza. Lucky for me, she didn't know, because the condition was very bad as well, and to להתמודד, and to cope with it, that her brother is dead, I don't know how she coped with the prison that we were in. Captivity. So I can tell you that on the morning before I got kidnapped, I was talking to my neighbor. She told me someone threw a grenade under the table. I don't know what to do. I told her, go to the shelter. When I came back to Israel, I asked, what about my neighbor? They told me she is dead. She got murdered. Another neighbors of us, young couple, they have 4 children. Their house was on fire, so they got out, and they did a pile of people, of the family, from the youngest one to the father. The father was murdered, the mother was murdered, the 2 big brothers was murdered. Suddenly the little children felt that no one is talking to them and no one answered them, and they understand that their parents and brother are dead. So they went out, and the neighbor took them into to a house through the window. There are all kinds of terrible stories in the kibbutz. Like there is a road that leads into my house. All the people are on this road are dead. Families. It's so terrible. It's so hard for me to speak about it, because every time I remember. When I got back, I said I saw Ohad didn't get back, and I was I told my daughters, I left my husband, I left your father in Gaza. That's the first thing that I said. Antonia, you can take it over. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Raz. I will ask Aviva and Raz a few questions, but as I said in the beginning, if you have questions, we will have time at the end for Q&As. Aviva, you spoke in your testimonies about women, young girls, young women being beaten while naked. You said one girl came back and told you, he touched me. you don't say the word rape. Why is that?
Because I think that it's not for me to say that. But I think I said enough.
While you're giving your testimonies, you are, of course, not using the names of these young women, and it should be like that because it's none of our business to know what some person exactly went through. But I can imagine that when you came back and you met the mothers and fathers of these young women, and we know we don't have so many women left there, did they ask you, what happened to my daughter? What happened to my child?
I decided when I came back, not knowing where Keith is, if Keith's alive or if Keith is dead, the feeling of not knowing what's happening to Keith, I gave them the chance to know what I saw. I went to them and I told them, if you want me to tell you the truth, I'll tell you. You must decide. But I decided that I'm not going to keep silent. I have to talk for the girls that are there. Some of the girls are going to come back pregnant. And I don't want to even think about what they're going to go through. And I am here talking for them because they're not here. So, yes, their families know.
You said yourself some of these girls are going to get back pregnant. Did they know already when you've been there, or did they assume, or?
I know that the girls used to talk about the period, that it didn't arrive yet, that it's late, that it's not coming. And I used to tell them, just wait, it'll come. I don't know if the things that they didn't tell me, that they were too embarrassed to tell me. And we need them back as soon as possible because they're going through hell there. They could be raped at this minute.
And it's maybe also important to state for the room that after 5 or 6 months, it might be too late to get an abortion if these girls will come back pregnant. You also said, Aviva, in the Israeli Knesset that the terrorists used to dress these girls in doll clothes. What did you mean by that?
First of all, 3 of the girls, young girls, that nobody seen their body, they let them shower with the door open while they watched them having a shower. And they were very, very embarrassed. They brought them clothes that are very tight, and they used to just stare at them. They brought me clothes that were ridiculous, and they used to laugh of what I looked like. Okay. I'm very worried about what's happening there.
And you also mentioned in previous testimonies that it's not only the women, that also men endure sexual crimes.
I wasn't with men that went through things like that, but I wanted people to understand that because they thought and did everything they wanted to us, anything, starve us, touch us, shout at us, put the gun to our head, pull our hair, push us, make us sit for more than 15 hours without not even saying a word, not letting us stand, not letting us walk, then they can do everything. So they can touch the boys too. They just do what they want to.
I see also in the room we see enough women. I think every woman knows how it is even just to go on the street when it's dark or to go into some place and feel afraid. Raz, if I may ask you, you were yourself there. You were also with a 14-year-old child there. Were you ever afraid of being raped?
I have to tell you, I wasn't afraid of being raped there. I was afraid of being there. I was afraid from the guns. I was afraid of maybe if I have to go out, I will being lynched by the Gaza people, like when I went in Gaza and they throw things at me and hit me. I was afraid all the time from the situation of being captured in Gaza. That was I was afraid of. I wasn't afraid of being raped.
What was the thing that most frightened you?
I lost control of my life. Someone else took control of my life. I didn't know when I go back, if I go back. I was afraid for my girls all the time. I was afraid for Gali. I was afraid just being there, when I will have dinner, when I will have to eat something, if I will have anything to eat, if I will have anything to drink. I was afraid going to the toilets, because when I was going to the toilets, they would look at me very strange. I didn't want to wake up in the morning, because when I woke up in the morning, all I was doing was waiting for the night. And in the night, I was waiting for the morning. I was just waiting for the days to pass on. I didn't have my medicine, as I told you, and I was going like, when you don't get your medicine and you need your body. My body was hurting all the time because I didn't get the medicine that I had to get medicine. It was like,
When the body shuts down, when you feel...
Yes, and when you don't get your medicine...
And you get also hallucinated?
Yes, you get hallucinate, your body hurts. My body was hurting all the time because I didn't get my medicines that I was using to get. I didn't sleep at all. Now I also don't sleep at night because I'm afraid. I'm afraid for my husband. I don't know what else to do. I just want my husband back. That's why I'm here. I'm here to tell you what I was going through. But I'm also here to tell you that so many days passed and all I want is my husband back and all the hostages to come back. I don't know who to talk to. I was with so many countries talking to people. Everyone I have to say was very nice, but nothing going on. They're still there, like 146 days, and nothing happened. Who can help us? I came to Geneva because I know all the countries are here, and maybe someone will try to help us to get them back. Switzerland is the place of peace, when people want peace. People want to organize peace all around the world. That's how I see Geneva. Today we were sitting and hear the Palestinian ambassador talks, and everyone was clapping. What were they clapping for? There are hostages in Gaza. People are suffering. We need them back. They didn't do anything. We were just civilians. We were quietly staying in our places where we live, like you all. And then suddenly someone came and kidnapped into Gaza. Where is the human rights?
Aviva, you said that you were moved 13 times, one time even to a school of UNRWA. Did you encounter, while you were there, also what maybe most of us would call civilians, women, children, or were they all like terrorists of Hamas?
To walk, when they moved us, we used to walk with people from Gaza, and they used to walk next to us. But we looked like them because they dressed us like we looked like them with clothes.
Can you tell us about the moment where you understand that you are coming back, but you need to leave your husband behind?
The only minute, the first minute that I knew that I am coming back to Israel is the minute that I met the first soldier. Until then, I didn't believe anybody. And on the way in the Red Cross, when they took us, I was sure that I was going to die. The people there were trying to break the window of the car, and there was somebody that took a metal stick and was trying to hit the windows with it and break it.
That's while you're going out already.
That's why we was going out. When they told me that I'm going out, it was like a day before. They moved us to a house that most of the place was ruined already, that bombed already. So I said to myself, we're lucky, at least we'll be able to sleep a little bit during the night, that there won't be all the bombs around us. And after 10 minutes of being in that house, while they separated Keith and I, Keith was in a different room, and somebody came after 10 minutes and said, "You tomorrow, Israel." I looked at him and I said, Me and Keith. And I argued with him and I said, I'm not going anywhere without Keith. Until I understood that I'm talking to the wall. And I said, but I need to say goodbye to Keith, and he wouldn't let me say goodbye to Keith. He said, no, you're not going to Keith now. Keith is sleeping. So I looked at him and I said, we've been here for 10 minutes. Keith isn't sleeping. So I pushed him and I went to Keith and I hugged Keith. And I told Keith to be strong for me and that I'll be strong for him, not knowing if I'll ever see Keith again or where they're taking me, because I didn't believe a word they said. They lied about everything all the time.
What did he say back?
Keith, he was in a shock, like I was in a shock. We were in a shock.
But do you remember the last words he told you?
I don't think he said a word. He was in a shock. I was the only one that said, you be strong for me, I'll be strong for you.
How many people in this room have children? Okay. Raz just described that she was in captivity for 54 days while not knowing if her 3 daughters are alive or not. Try to imagine, after hearing them, being in captivity, enduring torture, criminal sexual abuse, and not knowing if your loved ones, if your children are still alive, or if they are themselves hostages. Aviva, you have 4 children. One of them, Shai, lives at the kibbutz, and you as well didn't know all this time if he is alive.
Yes.
When you came back, can you tell us about the moment where you found out that you still have 4 children?
I was sure for 51 days that Shai is dead because he wrote to us. We were 4 hours before they took us in our little shelter. And he wrote that he's holding his fingers and that he can hear the Arabic from outside, them shouting. And then we didn't hear about Shai anymore. I went there being sure that my son has been killed. After a couple of weeks, one of the girls came. She was alone and she came to be with us, and she told me that she saw on the TV with the door little open, they were watching TV, that there was a disaster on Kibbutz Gaza and that 700 were killed. And I was finished. I couldn't handle even thinking about Shai. And sometimes when I did think about Shai, he's such a sensitive person and sweet. I said, maybe rather him dead than being there and going through what I went through. And that's what I thought. And when I came back, the social worker that was with me in the car, I went to her and I said to her, I think that I'm going to faint, coming back to Israel alone, leaving Keith there, standing and looking at my 3 daughters, sad because their brothers dead and their fathers in Gaza. I think I'm going to faint. So she said, I'll hold you, you won't faint. And she went and she did a couple of calls on the telephone, and she came to me and she said, you have 4 children. And I asked her, is he okay? Isn't he wounded? Are you sure that he's okay? Because when I went to Gaza, there was a family that came, and she said that they killed her husband in front of her. And Shai has a dog, and I said that he's going to protect the dog. And if they do anything, kill the dog, he'll scream at them and they'll kill him. So it was very, very hard being there, knowing. And I was the luckiest mother in the world when I saw my son.
Is the dog also alive?
He brought the dog to the hospital, one of the first dogs coming into the hospital.
I want to ask you both. I mean, you come back from the halls of Hamas, and then you hear that not everyone in the world is with us, and that almost 5 months afterwards, people are not mentioning anymore the 7th of October and are not mentioning anymore the hostages, or mentioning the hostages in a half sentence and then a whole speech about accusation of genocide in Gaza. How do you feel?
You know what we said about the Holocaust? Never again. And it happened again. There are still people in the world that don't believe about the Holocaust. I believe, and it's make me feel very bad, there are people in the world don't believe about 7 October. I believe we should tell all the world 7 October was existed. Everyone should believe us. And you ask, I'm going back. You ask Aviva about her son when she came back. I was very strong in Gaza. I was holding, not crying. I wasn't crying. When I came back into Egypt, they took us into a hospital. Then I was crying like I never cried before. Then we went to Kerem Shalom, and I asked the person that met me and talked to me if my daughters are alive. And she said yes. I wish everyone this feeling like I felt. It was like giving birth again, but better. I was so glad that they were alive. We were talking on the phone, crying. They were crying in the hospital where they were waiting for me in Ichilov. I was crying in Kerem Shalom. It was the most best feeling that I had. I want my husband to come back and feel the same. Because now he don't know his daughter is alive. Think how he's feeling. I want him to come back and feel like I felt when I heard that they were alive.
Amen.
Amen.
I've been looking at the time, and we don't have a lot of it. So I will ask you if someone has a question. Now is the time. It's okay. I wanted. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Katharina, the German ambassador here in Geneva. And I don't have a question. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you that you came all the way here to Geneva. I want to say thank you that you shared what you lived through, that you found the courage to actually talk about it. And I can only guess over and over again. I can only say that it's very important for us to hear this. I have the feeling that you give a voice to those hostages, and Meirav said 134, who are still in captivity. You give a voice to them, and it's invaluable here. It's so important that you do this. And because you mentioned it and you saw it and you went to the debate here, and the debate, when you have to listen to them, I must also say for me it's also not very easy to listen to it. For me it's still not easy to accept, but it's a fact that even on October the 9th, people were not able to condemn the terrorist attacks of October the 7th. Too many people here in Geneva, and they still don't do it. They still don't say release all hostages. So it's important that you are here and that you talk and that you give the testimony. And I want to thank you for that. And also, and you know it, because I know you have talked to our minister and president, my country will continue to call for the release of the hostages, but not only call, but also work for it. Whatever it takes here in Geneva, in Berlin, in Israel, and in all the other places where it's necessary, and to really work until the last hostage is back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to share that my grandmother, her family was killed in the Holocaust. And she was sad her whole life. And she did not tell me the stories. I heard the stories only after she died. And I'm here, and I'm not going to keep quiet.
Thank you.
I want to thank Germany for the help that you help us until now. I really feel you are coming. I'm a citizen of Germany, and I want to thank you for what you're doing until now. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank everybody. Everybody that's here. I can't believe that you're all here with me. I thought that we would come and there would be 20 countries, and there's so many more. And thank you very much.
Just a second, there is also a question from the Austrian ambassador. Yes.
Also not a question and more a comment and expression of solidarity. I thank you very much for taking the courage of coming here, of sharing your unbelievable stories with us. And through us, you're reaching also our capitals and our politicians. And I wanted to share with you that our foreign minister is currently traveling the region. In all his meetings, his main messages are that nothing justifies the barbaric acts of Hamas, that the absolute priority for us is to bring home all the hostages, and that Austria will not allow the fate of more than 130 children, men and women, to disappear from the public eye in Austria, Europe, or beyond. And I thank you very much for coming here.
Yes, of course.
I stand up because I want to look you in the eyes. This is my dad in the 7th of October. This is my dad in the 6th of October. He deserves to be back from the 7th of October to the 6th of October. And I think here, this place, there is many power. There is so much power that we can do this. We can bring them home. So I'm asking you to look me in the eyes, to look him in the eyes, and to do anything you can do to bring them home. Just ask yourself every day what you did yesterday, what you did today, and what you will do tomorrow, that they will come home. Because they deserve to be home. They are innocent people that didn't do anything to anybody. So please, with your power, with the words you can say all over the world, help us. Help me not to be an orphan, because I need my dad. And also, all the other hostages, they are family. They are not just a picture. They are human beings, and they deserve to be home. So please help us bring them home now.
wanted to say that right now I feel like the entire world is with us in this room. I see all those countries that you are coming from, and I want us to hold together the hope of a good world for our kids, for our grandkids to grow up in, to know that innocent people won't be kidnapped to a different place and just be there waiting for something to happen. I want to say that I, as a person that grew up in Kibbutz Kfar Aza, 2 kilometers from Gaza, all my life felt sorry for the kids and for the innocent people that are being there, and I still feel. I see the news in Israel and in Gaza, and I really hope that special, unique, creative leaders on both sides would be able to make this region a peaceful place to live in. I believe in the Israeli forces. I believe in the Israeli people, and I know that we will get over it. We will be strong together. But I also know that what's happening right now in Israel, it's not an Israeli problem. And it's not a Jewish problem. Because there are 134 hostages, and some of them are not Jewish. Some of them are not Israeli. They're Thai people, people from Portugal, from Poland, from Muslim people. There are Muslim people that have been in captivity. So it's not an act against us. It's against a good world. And it will happen everywhere if we will just close our eyes and we will just let it happen anywhere, everywhere. And I'm asking you to make a statement in every way you can to say no more. People aren't puppets that you can do whatever you want with them. And to set a hard and strict line and saying this will not go on in any way you can. And thank you for sitting here and listening to those amazing women's stories. They're working so hard from the minute that they landed back to Israel to bring all of those people back home.
Thank you, Aviva, and thank you, Raz, that you shared with us your thoughts, your experience, your pain. I want also to thank WIZO and the Israeli mission to the UN for making this event possible. I think that we can conclude that October 7 changed us. We have at home 10 million people who will suffer from post-traumatic experiences in some kind of level. It changed how we see ourselves as Israelis. It changed how we see the conflict, and it probably also changed how we will raise our children. In front of you sat today Aviva and Raz, and they look okay, right? I mean, they're brave enough to come to the UN and speak with you. But none of us are okay. Israelis are not okay. Jews around the world are not okay. They need to heal. We need to heal. But it will never happen before our men, our women, and our children come back safe. So bring them home now.